Hello and welcome back. We are here in the final round of Swiss.
For today.
For today, yep.
Got a 200 for YCS in Utrecht, European edition. I'm here with Luke Wivington, and he is very tired, as I am.
I'm very tired, yeah. I'm running on fumes at this point.
Honestly, I don't know how these players do it, because I say their job's a lot harder when they're concentrating on games repeatedly, and in between rounds, I just get to sit down, drink water, and be like, all right, let's just take notes on this game, and I'm like slowly falling out.
Yeah, it's tough. So, I think we've been really well with the feature matches today. We've been able to keep up with
we got a couple of good
some
ones.
Interesting ones, and it's no different for the final match. We tried to get one of the matches a bit lower down, so that it's kind of more important to these guys.
These are guys on the bubble, so for one of them, it's
exactly.
It's all over.
You should have. That was not a very good prop noise.
I'm not very good.
There we go. Nailed it. That was much a better one.
There you go, but now it just feels wrong. So, yeah, this is a bubble match between Heroes and Paleozoic Frogs. So, this matchup's actually occurred 4 times throughout today, and it's favouring the hero player, I believe, right?
The hero player.
66 points.
2 to 1. 2 to 1. There's
repeating,
been,
of course.
There's
no chance.
There's been 4 matches. 1 was a draw. 1 was a win for the Paleozoic Frog player, and 2 were for the Heroes.
Okay, so Heroes. How about the players themselves? Do we have information on them?
No, but I can tell you more about the decks.
Yeah, tell me more about the decks.
The hero player, for example, so the hero decks, not doing so well against our top played deck, Sky Striker Pure, right now.
But they have Stratos, so that fixes everything.
Yeah, it's all about Jumpman.
Do you say Gem Knight?
I call
word salad.
Stratos is Jumpman.
Oh, Junkman.
Jumpman.
Oh, Jumpman. Oh, right, okay.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure his original translation 10 years ago, whenever it was Jumpman, or Airman. No, Airman. That's it, Airman.
Like a basketball player.
Yes, yeah. Because he's
Airbud.
Airbud. Yeah, with the dog. You're talking about the one with the dog, right?
Yeah, the one moved with the dog. Not Beethoven.
Not Beethoven. No, Beethoven was really good though.
I can't remember. It was a long time ago.
Okay, it was really good. Oh, you should watch it. Everyone should watch it. Not right now though, because right now it's all about round 9. Here at YCS.
Yeah, guys, let's do this one more time for today. And if you still haven't had enough of Yu-Gi-Oh, please tune into our US live stream where you can carry on throughout the night. But for now, let's get on with our last feature match for today.
Yeah, Oliver German and Thomas Payne, please take it away.
Yeah, it's finally casual round number 9.
Casual round 9. I'm going to say it's casual round 9 for the casuals over there who are too tired.
Yeah, this is the round where we kind of get the ties off, where we do our best Henry Cavill impressions and do this move and get that back and have crappy makeup on and stuff like that. All for you guys, just to keep it light and distract a little bit from the pressure that is going to go down in the round, because one of these guys might not make day 2.
Indeed. Well, I expect they'll probably make day 2, but I feel like losing this one likely puts you out of contention for the top cut.
Really bad position, exactly.
Yeah, I think day 2 is pretty much secured. I don't know for sure.
So you're still hanging in there, but no longer playing for the big crown at the end of the day.
Indeed.
So we got Valentin Migdal from France playing a hero deck, and he's going up against Stefano Bosso from Italy playing Paleozoic Frogs. We heard there's a very slow sample size, but you can just run us through this. What do these decks like to do?
So hero, well this is a 60 card hero deck, so it's quite difficult to say all the different things it can do, because it can do so many different things depending on the different cards that you draw. But I think the heart and soul of the deck is finding a way to send Elemental Hero Malicious to the not Elemental Hero Malicious, Destiny Hero Malicious to the graveyard. With some warrior like Vision Hero, Vion, Armageddon Knight, Dark Grepher, etc.
A couple of ways.
And then summon it and make Isolde, and then summon a Elemental Hero Shadow Mist. Okay. And then that can search you a Mask Change and get you a Dark Claw. I feel like that's the sort of thing you expect them to be doing. Malicious into Isolde.
We did actually see Dark Claw earlier today in the stream. Lots of investment going into that card, but then it got popped
backfired,
almost. Backfired. Got actually taken to the opponent's side of the field. I don't quite remember how. Was it Boron Load Dragon?
Yes.
Yes, and then basically put in the work for the opponent, and it did decide a game, just not in the way that
the wrong way around.
Summoning it.
Interestingly, we've also got 3 copies of Gozen Match, which is kind of like a floodgate, which isn't a card that you associate with a deck like Hero, which has got this crazy summoning potential.
Yeah.
And unfortunately for Valentin, I guess he doesn't know this yet, but Gozen Match doesn't actually do very much against Paleozoic.
Yeah.
They just summon water monsters.
So we're going to talk a little bit about Paleozoic, but let's first take you guys to the table. Yes, where we're going to be ready to get our last game of for day number 1 of the 200th YCS. Hinted at that, we don't have the full deck list, although Paleozoic kind of does the same thing every single time.
Indeed, so you can kind of guess the cards that are going to be in a Paleozoic deck. I think the choice of trap lineup is dependent on the meta that you expect, so there we see Anti-Spell, Fragrance and Mistake, which are both cards which you expect to be powerful against the Sky Striker deck. So, in any deck that is slow and runs trap cards, often Card of Demise is a popular choice, and that's one we're seeing. And I think Valentin might be kicking himself when he sees the Demise. I mean, it's normally a good idea to Ash Swap Frog, because you really, really don't want to see your opponent end up with a Toad on their first turn, but I feel like he'd probably have been happier if he'd been able to save the Ash for the Demise.
It's a pretty good start.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is... I mean, Swap Frog is the... I don't know, I mean, I haven't done any statistical analysis, but I feel like the win rate of Paleozoic frogs increases quite a lot if they open Swap Frog.
Yeah,
because
unfortunately
Swap Frog
we don't
is
have
the card that makes Toad by itself.
We don't have the statistics for that.
We don't have the statistics for that. Maybe
Would be great if
in
we
the
had
future,
them. Yeah.
get players to record their exact games.
Yeah, and then have like some software that automatically translates that into data, and then we know if he starts with this and this card, how likely is it that he's going to win.
I mean, this to me...
Here we see immediately the Anti-Spell Fragrance being flipped, no surprise there. And that is forcing Valentin to take a back seat, basically.
This to me is a matchup where going first is a big advantage, because the hero deck wants to go first and do some crazy combos, and the Paleozoic deck wants to go first and set lots of trap cards to stop people doing any crazy combos. And as we've seen, lots of trap cards have been set and no crazy combos have happened.
Yeah,
because
not yet. Yeah, we're getting there.
Indeed. Well, Toad is a particularly mean card for stopping people doing their crazy combos.
So, Stefano Bosso, I mean, he's got the Anti-Spell Fragrance already face up on the field, of course.
I would say he's in an extremely strong position right now.
I was getting there. You were getting there. You jumped the gun, my friend.
I jumped the gun.
But that's okay. I mean, it's round number 9, so...
It's round 9.
Yeah. All right.
Just get to the point, you know.
How can Valentin get out of this sticky situation?
I think the best way would be to go to game 2.
Okay.
If I'm going to be completely honest, I would not show my... in this situation myself, I would not think it worth showing my opponent what deck I was playing.
Are you saying that because you will go to bed very soon?
No, I'm just saying that because I'm seeing Toad, which I don't think he can kill, along with 4 face downs. I mean, I suppose you don't know what the face downs are, but you can assume that they're probably some Paleozoic cards to interrupt your plays. The anti-spell is going to slow you down enough by itself.
It's going to be some sort of...
Toad is one of the rudest, like, kind of... You know, like how Cyber Dragon Infinity is this great interrupt, and Toad basically does the same thing. And not only that, but if you don't answer it, it makes another one, and then kills you. So... And
he's actually on his way to doing just that?
Yes, indeed. So Toad is one of the most powerful cards. Yeah, it's genuine. It's one of the best Yu-Gi-Oh cards out there, really.
Yeah.
It both stops your opponent from doing things, and then, you know, if they don't answer it, it then just sort of snowballs advantage.
Just imagine we ever had a card that doesn't work with frogs like that, but that is like a chaos monster, basically, and it can just get a free negate and stuff like that.
Indeed.
That would be pretty strong as well, but I think this is fine in this archetype.
Yeah, I mean, it works so well because it searches Dupe Frog as well, and then Dupe Frog means you can't just attack over it. So often a great way to force out interrupts from your opponent is to summon a monster which threatens to attack over it.
Right.
But if you summon a Dupe Frog, then they have to attack with Dupe Frog first.
So here, Stefano Bosso drawing some more blood. 3,600 life points remaining for Valentin Migdal. So far, Stefano still doesn't know what his opponent is playing.
Indeed. I mean, he's seen Caught by the Grave, but I think that's a fairly generic...
Yeah, I would agree.
I mean, you might guess... I mean, he might be able to guess from the number of cards that his opponent's playing that it's not a Sky Striker deck, for example.
Yeah.
So you probably know a bit. I mean, my instinct would be to say that it was a hero deck. And in fact... Well, if I saw 60 cards.
Well, now it's fairly obvious.
And now it's fairly obvious because that card is often used in hero decks.
You could even go as far and say it was a mistake flipping that card.
You could, but then you would be accused of making horrendous puns.
I would say they are great puns.
You'd say they're great puns.
Especially appropriate considering it's 10:30. So
we're going to see
if you're ever going to forgive me, then that would be now.
A very sad soul charge is what I would call it.
Sad soul charge?
A sad soul charge, because it looks like the only target is Ash Blossom.
Yeah, that is a sad soul charge.
That is quite a sad soul charge.
It is
not
indeed.
only could it just be negated if he wanted to as well, and even stolen just for good measure.
I would have that resolved. Just
for fun.
Yeah. It's like, yeah,
I played a game once where I soul charged like 2 copies of Ghost Ogre. But unlike Ash, you can actually use Ghost Ogre.
Right.
When it's on the field.
You can go to places with that.
Well, it's not that great. But
it didn't sound like you were.
It wasn't great
saying that, yeah.
But it does more than. I don't know what his plan was with the Ash. I think was it just going to block an attack.
So actually, Valentin Migdal is probably going to see yet another turn, which is the biggest surprise of this game so far.
I mean, Paleozoic is, again, it's a deck like Sky Striker where you just end up with so many resources, so many ways to interrupt your opponent that it doesn't matter that they get another turn.
Why don't we see the deck more often in this format?
I think the deck was hampered a little bit by the introduction of Master Rule 4. Mm-hmm. So one of the most powerful things about the deck was the fact that if you made a toad, you could then make another toad. Mm-hmm. And now there's an extra step, which is that you have to link away the toad, so you end up with less toads than you probably would have ended up with in the first instance. Have I said toad too many times?
No, that's fine. I was just pointing at the Dark Grepher because that's one of the cards that immediately popped out when you looked over the
Well, it popped out to me that there was only
list.
2 copies in a 60-card deck, and I mean, personally, I think the Dark Grepher is a very important card in this deck because Malicious is the card that you really want to get going.
Yep.
And there's many ways to get it as possible, even if you think it's redundant to run. I mean, he's got his 3 Armageddonite, his 2 Dark Grepher.
I think you're making a losing case if you're arguing about redundancy in a 60-card deck.
Well, you need more copies than you would expect. You need more than in a 40-card deck. But the thing is, if you want to open it every game, which you really do, then why not as many as possible?
Right.
I mean, and he's obviously got the extra utility as well because he's got cards like Destrudo, the Lost Dragon's Frisson, which you can send.
We now see the Moon Mirror Shield.
The Moon Mirror Shield is quite funny.
It is.
It makes your
monster
any monster basically the biggest monster on the field.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not really used for that effect in this deck. It's used to be sent with Isolde, and because it's an equip spell, which if you equip it to something, can send itself back to the deck. So one of the problems with Isolde was that you, if you drew your equipped spell, then it wouldn't be in the deck anymore. But with Moon Mirror Shield, you can just equip it to something, link it away for Isolde, and then Moon Mirror Shield puts itself back in the deck for you.
Yep.
So that was why it was one of the favoured cards to use. I mean, in his deck in particular, he's running loads of equipped spells, so it might be, in my opinion, like one of the 4th or 5th best, but it's fine to see it in the deck when you need 4 or 5.
Maybe he is a fan of redundancy.
Indeed.
Just not in the case of Dark Grepher.
So we saw a little something there with attacking over Duke Frog, and Valentin was pointing out to his opponent that he couldn't search his deck because of Mistake. However, Duke Frog, I believe, can add a frog from the graveyard, which Mistake does not have anything to say.
There's even more stuff than a second copy of Solemn Strike for Stefano to stop his opponent, but so far he didn't even need that much negation, actually.
No, I mean, he's got the anti-spell and the Mistake up, which is quite a lot to deal with.
Yeah, it is. There were a couple of decks that just immediately scooped once one of these cards was flipped face up.
Can we tell, is the Infinite Impermanence in the same column as the Moon Mirror Shield?
No, that's a good question, and impossible to answer for me.
I mean, it looks like from the layout of the cards on the table that it is.
No, this doesn't mean that.
But it might not mean that.
Yeah, no, this is what we see here.
Oh, it is. I just saw him.
Okay.
So that's one possible answer. So he needs some answer to. He can't just attack over the Dark Grepher. He needs to do something else, and that something else might just be flipping Infinite Impermanence to attack it, which I believe puts enough damage on the board just to attack for game this turn. But he might choose to. He's got the Ronin Toadin and plenty of fuel to link summon something, and then make an XYZ that deals with it.
There are definitely ways around this one card that is stopping him right now.
You would hope that the deck can out a monster that has, out a monster without having to attack it.
As again, you made a sentence where we could just put a full stop early in. You would hope that the deck can out a monster.
You would.
Period.
It is quite if you've played this deck, the Paleozoic deck, against the true Draco deck, it's one of the saddest things ever because it just can't deal with it in any way. It's just awful. It's so awful.
It's making for a fun playtesting experience.
If we've looked at this guy's rounds, but I expect he's probably dodged true Dracos. This is my guess. Or maybe those were his losses.
Yeah, those might have been his losses.
But this matchup is one of those matchups which is just so difficult to win. You're so unfavored in this matchup. There aren't really that many matchups in Yu-Gi-Oh! Where you just think it's
impossible to win.
It's impossible, but it's so hard. When they just stick like a single true Draco monster and they have inbuilt back row removal, they have... it's awful.
So Valentin Migdal won against Altergeist, won against ABC, won against Trickstar. Then he lost to Altergeist. He won against some other deck, lost to some other deck, won against Altergeist again.
Valentin's playing Hero though, so I was talking about the Paleozoic.
Yeah, I'm giving you both of these.
A circling round.
Then he lost to Goki. Is that 3 losses? Am I mistaken here? No.
Probably not.
2 losses. No, I think that's 3 losses, if I'm not mistaken.
It is 3
Did he
losses.
get paired up then? Because Stefano, I'm pretty certain that Stefano was actually X2. That was the entire idea of picking this match. Alright, so let's go with Stefano. He did win against other, which means some rogue deck. Lost to Paleozoic Frogs. That's weird.
I did actually, when I was walking around yesterday,
in a mirror match.
A side event which had a Paleozoic Frog mirror match, and on the table next there was also a Paleozoic Frog.
Okay.
Out of the 4 decks on those 2 tables.
He won against 3. Crusadia, won against another rogue deck, won against Invoked Mech Knight, lost to Sky Striker Pure. This is the first time we see Sky Striker Pure, by the way, in their guys' matchups.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they dodged it for a very long time. Then Stefano won against Sky Striker Pure, and then he lost to Sky Striker Pure. So
yeah, maybe that's a stats question to throw at
Luke and Matt
and see what the win rate is between True Draco and Paleo.
Yeah.
So as was expected from the opening, I think Stefano did take that first game. And in the side deck for Valentin, almost certainly we would expect some red reboots, generally just spell and trap removal. So in the side deck there are red reboots and Cosmic Cyclone. If I'm going to be honest, I don't think there's much else.
Yeah.
Because he's got Rivalry of the Warlords, which is a very powerful card, and Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries, all of which are going to do a lot for you, but just not in this particular matchup. I don't think there's anything else particularly appropriate there for
Valentin.
The Paleozoic matchup.
Yeah, we did look at the side. We have a photo of the side deck.
We have a photo of the side deck, yeah.
And it's fairly straightforward side deck. We see Gamesil, 3 copies of Mind Crush.
They've sided really fast. They're already going.
Oh, wow. And we still have a couple of minutes left. Goes in match.
If I'm going to guess, I don't know. I mean, Wiretap is a sort of generic side deck card to deal with cards, problem cards like Evenly Matched and Red Reboot. But the thing is, when you're playing against someone who's playing 60 cards, I mean, Wiretap basically only hits Red Reboot, and are you willing to have a card which is only there for possibly 3 in 60?
Yeah.
That's really not very many, and he might not even have sided it in when he knows he's going first.
Alright, so Valentin goes first with an E emergency call. He's got a second copy.
So we're either going to see E emergency call for Solid Man. I was really hoping he was going to get a Stratos.
Yeah.
But
now that he's free again.
It was not to be.
It's okay. We still succeeded with our mission of freeing Stratus.
He was freed.
And, you guys know, next online is Free Construct.
Indeed. So I think the plan is to send Matt Bell Facebook messages about that.
I am supposed to notice somebody. Why is that? I'm noticing the entire Twitch chat, guys. Nobody needs to show me messages. Notice me, senpai. I notice all of you guys.
Ollie is all-seeing.
Yeah, I am. I would fist bump the entire Twitch chat if I could. If I was a Senju of 1,000 hands. Or
what about the Manju with 10,000?
Yeah.
I don't think you actually need 10,000 for the whole Twitch chat.
So far.
Senju would do the trick.
Yeah, so far. But yeah. The goal of the weekend is, of course, to turn into Manju at some point. to have to turn into Manchu.
We're seeing the Isolde now, and it's going to summon likely a target for the mask change that he's just searched out. So probably just a Shadow Mist.
It's so funny because...
Oh, a Vion. Oh, that's cool.
There was a time when you could, if you wanted to send 4 spells to the graveyard, you really needed a painful choice or something like that. Now
I think it's probably a good thing that painful choice is no longer allowed.
Nope, we're going to start a new hashtag right now, free painful choice.
So you know that card Foolish Burial?
Yeah.
That's quite a good card. And that sends 1 monster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Painful choice sends 4.
Yeah, but it's not just any choice. It's a painful choice.
It's painful, yeah.
For the opponent,
it's going to be painful for everyone, I think. It sends 4, and you get to add 1 to your hand.
You're not happy with that decision?
I'm not happy with that. I'm quite happy with this opening, though. I think it's pretty good. We're going to see Gumblar discard 2, possibly 4 cards from his opponent's hand. I think it is going to be 4, because he's going to use... well, first of all, he's going to add back the Sword. And Sword is great to discard for Gumblar, because if you... it's essentially free add to your hand. So you're hoping that Gumblar discards it, but obviously it's random, so you don't get to choose. And then on his opponent's turn, he can activate the Mask Change,
right? Rank
up the Malicious into Dark Law, and then discard 2 more cards, which then get banished.
I remember that we saw this entire move that you just described in one of the feature matches before.
I think that was the Goki deck. I mean, the Goki deck did a little bit more, I think, because it ended up with a much bigger, tastier board.
I don't mean this weekend. Generally speaking, just in the past at some point. I don't expect you to watch all the old...
Very possibly. I think this is what Michael Fauna was doing with his deck with in the European Championships.
I think that might be it, yeah.
He was using Mask Change to trigger Gumblar for a second time.
To trigger his opponent. And
to trigger his opponent, indeed.
Yeah. All right. So, on a scale from 1 to 10, how good is this opening?
I would say this is about 8.
Okay.
His opponent's going to start with...
So in the upper echelon.
It's definitely up there, because his opponent's going to start with 2 cards and staring down a Dark Claw.
Yeah.
I mean, Dark Claw is a card that if you go first and summon it can win the game by itself, quite frankly.
Sorry, I always stop listening when you say is a card. Whatever comes next in my mind, it doesn't happen. It's like Dark Claw is a card, full stop.
Dark Claw is a card.
At least at this time. I'm not into full sentences anymore.
Sure. Dark Claw card.
Yeah, we should actually do an entire feature match that way.
No verbs.
Dark Law. Oh, no verbs. That's harder. Battle phase Dark Law, basically, and that's then Dark Law damage.
Battle is a verb, but I suppose it's part of a noun in this case.
Yeah, it is. It is.
So, but he has got the Demise, which is potential for comeback. But Dark Claw does nick one of the cards that you add off Demise.
Yeah. So 3 cards he's drawing into Dark Law immediately.
And as he's tapping the Dark Claw, so he's going to get to banish even more of his opponent's cards if he hadn't done enough. He just doesn't get to play with any cards at all. So this is one of the problems with the deck that runs lots of traps, is that it doesn't necessarily fit in the hand traps to stop things like this happening to you.
And also Paleozoic is one of the slower decks, so a card like Dark Law that sometimes can really stick around for a longer time is going to hurt you so much more than one of the explosive decks that maybe one draw and then they go to town again. Paleozoic is not that kind of deck.
Indeed, although when you're playing a deck that answers with monster effects, then it's often a bit more challenging because you have to commit some monsters onto the field, then those monsters and resources get banished. Whereas if you're playing Paleozoic, you may just be able to flip the 1 trap card. So like we're going to see here, he's got the Paleozoic Canadian or the Infinite Impermanence, which will shut Dark Law off at least for a time.
Yeah.
So it's actually like, it's only 1 card, but you do have to draw that 1 card.
So this is his option here. Stefano, like, so stripped in terms of cards in hand and stuff like that. He's really standing with his back against the wall.
He is. He is going to be able to make a play here. So if he's able to... I think he's going to have to take the hit from Dark Law and then from Gumblar. And then he's going to be able to use on his opponent's turn. He's going to be able to activate Paleozoic Canadian and bring back that Dynamiscus from the graveyard, and then activate the Infinite Impermanence.
You mean on his turn then?
Yeah. Yeah. To bring back the... I mean, he could have done it in his opponent's end phase as well if he'd want. I don't see why you would, but you could. And then bring back the Impermanence. You activate the Impermanence in order to bring back the Canadia, and then he can make a Toad.
Right.
Which is nice, because once you know, that's
Toad
something...
is always nice.
Toad is awesome. Unfortunately for him, he has to negate the effect of Gunblar. So Gunblar is a mandatory effect to activate. So if he didn't have to negate the effect of Gunblar with Impermanence, which he will have to do, then he would have been able to summon the Toad to where Gunblar is pointing and set the card in his hand, and then Gunblar's effect is forced to activate at this point.
Right.
And that would mean Valentin would have to discard the card in his hand just for nothing. But
that would be good.
that would be good, but the only target for Impermanence at this point is the Gunblar.
Yeah.
So he's going to have to negate the Gunblar, and then the Gunblar will not force him to discard anything, because it'll be negated.
Right. Anyway, Stefano went through that motion. He's now got some action again.
If I'm honest here, I would have liked to have seen the Toad put in the extra, well, not the extra monster zone, but the zone that Gunblar is giving him instead, because that leaves the extra monster zone free for later.
Yeah.
Which is it's something quite handy for the deck.
Is there any reason why he wouldn't do it that way?
I would guess if you'd ask him, it would be because he forgot.
Yeah.
I don't know. There might be a reason, but I can't see what it is.
So the Toad gets rid of Dark Law.
So the Toad is going to stick now, because the Toad is, as I mentioned last time, the Toad is going to be able to get Dupe Frog, and Dupe Frog then prevents the Toad from being attacked over.
But only 2,600 life points remaining for Stefano Bosso.
Indeed, but Dupe Frog, unless it's summoned in attack mode... well, there's the Ash.
Yeah, there's
Ash is a good one.
Ash is a good card in
If
hand.
if I was Stefano, I would seriously consider negating that Ash with Toad right now.
Is he doing that? I think he is.
Well, I mean, if not, the Toad just gets attacked over.
Yeah.
So I can't recall what his face down is. Is it there?
Sorry.
It's an evenly matched.
Evenly matched.
That's not a very handy card. So yeah, he is just going to have to negate it. And now I think it would be a good play to summon the Dupe Frog underneath the Gunblar, because that would just force Valentin to just discard the card in his hand for nothing. But he's not done that.
Maybe he's not thinking of the effect.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't seem to be recognizing it as a card his opponent should be using.
Yeah.
Although no, he would have had to add. To be fair, he would have had to add the Swap Frog first, and then Gunblar would have triggered. However,
there
are a lot of
this,
then that. Indeed.
Yeah.
So Gunblar is a mandatory effect, so it would have had to go Chain Link 1, and then Swap Frog would have gone Chain Link 2.
Yeah.
Sorry, not Swap Frog. Totally Awesome would have gone Chain Link 2, so he would have had a card in his hand by the time Gunblar activated. However, what could happen here is if that's a monster, then Valentin could just bring back the sword, summon the monster, and force the card to be discarded anyway by discarding the sword rather than the card in his hand. And the sword is much better to discard.
Way too many ifs, buts, and howevers in those last few sentences. It's just
upshot is I would have summoned the Dupe Frog under the Gunblar.
Well, I mean, you have to keep in mind it's round 9. Very long day.
Round 9. It has been a long day, indeed.
And yeah, only one of these guys is gonna make it to day 2.
I mean, he may have made a conscious decision, or he may have just not realised that was a thing he could do. One of the two things. But it has paid off, because he has not got a monster. What is the card in his hand? Do we know the card in his hand?
Sorry, you're talking about Stefano? Dupe Frog?
No, Valentin.
Valentin, not yet, no.
It does look like there's a card in his hand.
He did have...
Maybe it is just the sword.
Then... Yeah, well, it
might
have...
the sword's in the graveyard.
Yeah, if that has been updated, that's the question here, because it doesn't always get immediately updated.
So, yeah, so should we see what he's drawn for turn?
We're going to find out very soon. So, Stefano now, Dupe Frog, Rowan.
Stefano appears to just be perusing his extra deck for possible outs to this 3,000 attack point Gunblar. And then leaving it face up, which I'm not sure why he's done that. I mean, I suppose his opponent probably knows there's going to be multiple copies of Totally Awesome in there, but it's not very standard to leave your extra deck face up on the table.
Nah, it's just like threatening your opponent.
Threatening. Here's this Toad. It's going to come and get you. He's also put it in his spell and trap card zone. Again, so really here, I just can't see any reason not to set the card in your hand if it is spell or trap, and then summon the Dupe Frog under the Gunblar just to discard a card.
People are now going, stop leaving your extra deck face up. It's not what you do.
It's very distressing. Yeah.
Apparently.
We're seeing one of the new Phantom Knight. I mean, it's not that new. I think this card was released after Paleozoic frogs were a good deck. So we see here that was an effect veiler, so that's quite critical. That if he could have forced that effect veiler to be discarded simply by summoning the Ronin Toad in underneath the Gumblar, or last turn. But the card in hand is Swap Frog, but he could have discarded to summon Swap Frog, and that's gone quite badly for him, unfortunately.
Yeah, that makes a world of difference.
It does. If I'm totally honest, I think a Toad may have been a better option, because Toad would not have been answered by the Gumblar immediately, and then he would have got a number more resources to carry on playing next turn.
But then again, I'm not sure if it makes any difference, to be honest. It seems like Valentin has been in such a commanding position the entire game so far.
But what Gumblar does is it makes both players very low on resources, so you're kind of hoping that your opponent's going to be able to do nothing at all.
Yeah.
And if they can, often if you make Gumblar and your opponent can do anything, you can actually end up losing, even though they've only started with 2 cards. So for example, if they just had Cosmo and a ship, they could still win the game with that. Well, so now this evenly matched, which I claim to be irrelevant, is actually going to be used.
Yeah, somewhat relevant.
This is now a mistake. I think we should check the judges that this has gone wrong, because the Canadia has to chain to the evenly matched. So when the evenly matched resolves, there will be 3 cards on the field. And yeah, they've corrected that now.
Yeah, they are on top of things.
Indeed. Yeah, so I think it was possibly Valentin jumping the gun, assuming there was no chains to the evenly matched. But in fact, there was a chain to the evenly matched, and that meant that Stefano had 3 cards on the field, and not 2. So no cards should be banished for Valentin.
It's actually advantageous for him that he didn't chain it, right? Because otherwise his opponent doesn't need to get anything.
Well, the point of activating the evenly matched was not to banish the cards, it was to summon the Paleozoic trap.
Okay. So it was irrelevant in a way.
Well, yeah,
any other trap could have done that.
Any other trap. It had to be a trap that you can activate.
Okay.
Which is most of them.
Yeah.
But it's still a requirement. You know, if it was like, I don't know, a wire tap, for example, you wouldn't have been able to activate it. I mean, Mirror Force could have been activated a long time ago.
Yeah, well, I thought you were talking about this very moment.
This very moment, I suppose. But I mean, if it was Mirror Force, it would have been useful a long time ago.
Evacuation device.
Oh, that would have been very cool.
It's a good card.
That card's come back to 3, I think. He's at 1 for a very long time. So here we're going to see Paleozoic Opabenia, which was one of the cornerstones of the Paleozoic Frog deck. So it allows you to search your deck for a Paleozoic trap, and it allows you to activate Paleozoic trap cards straight from your hand, so it turns them into spells, which is pretty good. So here we see, so he's going to add the Dynamiscus, which is a good answer to the Gumblar. So what was nice is, before Master Rule 4, is that you could... This is a deck that really didn't like Master Rule 4, because something like Opabenia, you then wanted to make a Toad afterwards, and it's not so easy for this deck just to link it away. It feels quite bad to link it away, because you only get 1 use out of its effect. So in this situation, you're just going to have to hope it sticks for another turn.
All right, so do you think that Stefano can actually fight with tooth and nail back into this match, or do you think that Valentin, or a duel rather, do you think that Valentin still has this?
I think Stefano is going to come back, and I think that red reboot is actually going to help more than...
We would have thought at the beginning.
No, I think that the red reboot is I think he should have just accepted that the Gumblar was going to die, because at this point he's just going to activate the red reboot and the Gumblar is going to die next turn. So I don't see... I think what he could have done at some point is chained the Cosmic Cyclone to a trap card to prevent Stefano from bringing back a trap. So that's one of the tips and tricks for against Paleozoic. Is
try
to prevent them
from
bringing back. So the Paleozoics have to be chained directly to a trap effect.
Yeah.
So if you activate any card in response to the trap effect, then they can no longer bring back a Paleozoic.
Yeah.
Interestingly, Stefano chose to set the card in his hand rather than keep it to discard for Dynamiscus.
Don't sound convinced that this is the correct line of play.
I'm definitely not convinced, because he could have activated Morella from his hand anyway, because he's got Opabenia on the field.
Right.
So I don't see the benefit in setting it, if I'm totally honest. So here we do see Valentin deliberately chaining the Cosmic Cyclone to Morella in order to prevent a trap coming back from the graveyard.
He could have cleared the Gumbler ages ago by summoning a frog next to Gumbler and negating the mandatory trigger, which is what you were pointing out.
Indeed,
this
yeah.
is what
There were
Thomas just
multiple
told us again.
occasions where he could have made Gumbler discard the Effect Veiler, or made him discard the card in his hand. So that is possibly one of the downsides to Gumbler, which is that its effect is mandatory.
Yeah.
So you have to discard at least one card from your hand, and if your opponent doesn't have any cards in their hand to make them discard, then you don't get any benefit from that. You just have to start discarding. So as I said, this setting the Morella has really cost him here, because otherwise he could have discarded the Morella for his Dynamiscus to banish the Gumbler this turn and kept around his Opabinia for next turn in order to add another trap from his deck to his hand and keep the Opabinia around.
It's kind of interesting because there wasn't that much game or ways to slow down the opponent on Stefano's side. I mean, he did have the anti-spell fragrance, but it wasn't like the first game. Where
I mean, the anti-spell hasn't really done that much.
Yeah, exactly. And still, despite Valentin having a couple of turns, he wasn't even able to put that much pressure on his opponent. I mean,
he very much used all his juice on the first turn, which is definitely something Gumbler does, because when you play Gumbler, especially in this deck, if you're not extra linking your opponent, you have to use the effect to discard cards from your hand.
Yeah.
So that means, yes, your opponent discards 4, but you've also discarded 4. So it means you don't have that many cards left. And it does look a bit like Stefano's going to be able to have a Toad on the board and outgrind Valentin here, because once the Toad sticks for a Paleozoic deck, that's normally game over most of the time.
Right.
If a Toad sticks for a turn, it often ends.
Very often,
wins the game. However,
despite it being such a cute little thing,
it is cute. I'm intrigued as to why a trap didn't come back when Dynamiscus was activated.
Yeah, there wasn't anything chained, was there?
There was nothing chained.
Was it the Cosmic Cyclone chained this time around?
The Cosmic Cyclone was chained to Morella last turn.
So that's a straight up no.
I'm not sure. Ooh. I mean, it might be that he discarded the cards straight away. And Dynamiscus isn't actually a cost to discard, it's an effect to discard.
Yeah.
So if you discard the card, that implies that you're resolving the effect and might be too late to chain. That might have been what was said, but I feel like that sort of interaction would have required a judge to confirm that was exactly what was going on.
Here's an Armageddon Knight, a new opening for Valentin.
Indeed,
finally.
So Armageddon Knight can, it looks like, send a Destrudo or a Shadow Mist. I don't see any other useful targets, and indeed we see the Shadow Mist to add any hero from your deck to your hand. So Armageddon Knight is in fact a Stratos in disguise, because it adds any hero from your deck to your hand.
It looks very different. It's a pretty good disguise.
It is a good disguise, but it is a strat. We've had him all along.
He could go to an E-Hero Halloween party.
He takes off his mask and he was there all along.
Yeah, maybe he never was banned.
Maybe.
Yeah. So what's Construct hiding as?
That's a good question.
Yeah, is it dressed up as well? Might be.
We'll figure that out. What is the same thing as Construct?
That's a trick question for the next game show style of stuff that we're going to do next time. We actually have ideas for new games. If you have ideas, guys, let us know. And then we're going to play something like 20 questions with Yu-Gi-Oh cards or things like that.
Oh, so the Destrudo was actually drawn, so there was no real need. So we're going to look at his extra deck now.
Oh, he does have Stratos in hand. I just want to mention that.
Yeah, he just added it with...
yeah, we're getting there. We're getting there.
Stratos will see the light of day.
It's going to be really freed, yeah.
So Destrudo, I think the only synchro... Oh, there are 2 synchro monsters, being Black Rose Dragon and FA Dawn Dragster. So FA Dawn Dragster is... Black Rose Dragon is old enough, I'm sure most people... Maybe it's too old, actually. When it's synchro summoned, it can destroy all the cards on the field.
It's like a dark hole together with a heavy storm.
It's a pretty good card, and it's one of the oldest synchro monsters, but it's seen play almost any time someone could make it. It's always been an option. So hopefully we will see here the anti-spell chained and then a Paleozoic brought back. Well, because the Paleozoics are unaffected by monster effects on the field.
I would be really surprised if we don't get to see that.
Because then, yeah, so the Paleozoic will live because they're unaffected by monster effects.
All right, so he's thinking about what the best option is. Does it make much of a difference which one he brings back?
I don't think when they're once they're in the graveyard and on the field, then nothing makes a difference. But it has not been chained. Oh, he's not used its effect. He just made it.
Yeah, I think that there's a bit of a misunderstanding about that very point. Do you use the effect or not?
I'm interested, if he's not using the effect, why he made that over FA Dawn Dragster, which has more attack points and effect, which negates spell and trap cards. Because Black Rose Dragon does not have an effect to negate spell and trap cards. It does have an effect to banish a plant from your graveyard and switch an opponent's monster into attack mode and give it 0 attacks.
It's not an effect that is used very often. But,
well, especially if you don't have any plants, yeah.
Especially then, yeah. But there were some decks that could use this effect, and every time the opponent was like really surprised, like, oh, you're not using this to blow up the field? No, it's got another effect.
Yeah, it has. It's a sneaky way of winning. So at this point, it does look hopefully like a Toad is going to hit the field this game. I really hope it does.
We did see...
If I know, a Toad did hit the field at some point.
Ash Blossom negating that.
Ash Blossom negating that, I don't think that's going to be terribly impactful at this point. Because his grave is kind of set up already. There's already a Rodent, Toadin and Frog monsters in the grave. So if I'm honest, I can see the Paleozoic player running away with this one.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely in a good position now, and
I think he may even be able to attack for game this turn.
You think he's going to go there?
I haven't done enough arithmetic. Let's see.
It's also late.
Yeah, so
I think we mentioned this once or
the Miss
twice.
Starboy is going to attack over the 1200 attack Black Rose Dragon for 900, and then the Toad is going to attack for 2500. Oh, it's going to attack for even more, because Miss Starboy reduces the attack of water monsters as well as pumping fire monsters. But I think it was game anyway.
No, you were 3,400 now 300. Yeah, super game now 3-5, and that is enough. And Stefano Pozzo actually takes that second game.
Despite
didn't look
the
like
extremely
that.
powerful start.
Yeah, it didn't look like that for a very long time. Let's talk about the last match of the day in our post-match analysis. Guys, we did it. We did make 9 rounds of Swiss competition on day 1 of the largest European Yu-Gi-Oh! Tournament of all time. It's been quite a long day. You guys can tell that we are looking forward to hitting the bed sheets again, just sleeping through the entire night, because tomorrow morning we're going to just continue where we're leaving here. It's 11 p.m. right now. Tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. we're going to come back, so that means 10 hours in the future, which you can spend by watching even more Yu-Gi-Oh! On our Mexican or our American stream. 10 hours in the future we're going to be back for YCS Utrecht. Before we go there, let's quickly recap that match. We had Hero against Paleozoic Frogs. Both not exactly decks we did expect to see very often.
I expected to see a little bit of Hero, because Stratos has come back, and Stratos is kind of a fan favorite.
It is.
So if anything's going to encourage people to play Hero, it's Stratos.
Exactly. It's you
on his
guys,
way back.
You did it. You went with free Stratos forever and ever, and now you finally got him.
So yeah, so I think in the first game it was somewhat of a steamroll for Paleozoic. They had this perfect opening, and there are some decks now. I mean, even though they're old decks, they're not meta decks, because they don't do the same thing every game. They don't do this really powerful opening every game, but Paleozoic is definitely a deck that's capable of an opening that will beat everything.
Yeah.
If it gets that and goes first, which it definitely did do.
It did do in that first game. Yeah, absolutely.
In the second game, we saw Valentin with
possibly
the most powerful opening that his deck can accomplish, and that just wasn't quite enough. So one of the issues with the Gunblast strategy is that if your opponent can use the cards in the graveyard, which in this case, just the one Paleozoic trap in the graveyard turned out to be enough of a benefit, then the Gunblar might fail to win the game.
And there were a couple of interactions.
I think that
could have forced the Gunblar activation, for example.
Indeed, so I think possibly Stefano could have won the game even quicker than he did.
Quicker,
I mean, I think his issue was that he didn't use Stratos. You know, if he'd used Stratos, he probably would have won for sure.
Yeah, let's just wrap it up with that. Guys, we're going to look very quickly at our stats tool. Let's bring up the metagame breakdown at the start of the day for one last time today. This is, we had, can we bring it up, guys? The metagame breakdown? Tech crew is might have already left the building. They're like, okay.
Maybe they're asleep.
Yeah, I heard that there's a steakhouse that only opens until 11:30, so they might be on the rush there.
That sounds like a fair reason.
Well, here we go. Right. Maybe they heard the keyword steakhouse and they were like, okay, we have to wrap things up now. All right.
On to us.
So this is what it looked like initially. Not that much of a surprise. If we